Before we get into these Bradley Beal trade rumors, let me tell you about this picture right here. So this is me at 8 years old, about to celebrate my 8th birthday, rocking an Allen Iverson jersey and some game-worn and autographed Allen Iverson sneakers. How did I cop those shoes? I didn't take them from The Answer. I didn't get them off eBay. Actually, my mom was friends with Larry Brown because while she and my dad were living in San Antonio, Larry Brown was the head coach of the Spurs, and during a New Year's Eve party, she was thrown into his pool, and then he gave her a warm-up outfit to rock because her clothes were soaked. So then my family moved to the Philadelphia area. Larry Brown took the Sixers job. My mom got in contact with Larry Brown and asked him, hey, my son is a huge Allen Iverson fan. It would make his life, it would make his world if you could send him a signed piece of Allen Iverson memorabilia. So for my 8th birthday, my mom surprised me with these Allen Iverson kicks. I'm not saying all this to brag. I'm saying this because we launched Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports back in the summer, and the channel has been growing like crazy. Do you want Sixers coverage from a fellow Philly guy, or should I say a fellow Philly Bull? Trying to get to 3,000 subs as soon as possible. We've been pushing out more and more videos because you guys have been showing us some love. Continue to show us love. Subscribe to the channel by hitting that red subscribe button down below, and let's start today's show. Philly, what's good? You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr. I hope all of you are having a fantastic week. What are we getting into on today's show? Well, Bradley Beal told Chris Haynes on his podcast he's not signing a contract extension with the Washington Wizards. So could that pave the way for Daryl Morey to trade away Ben Simmons for Bradley Beal to team him up with Joel Embiid? And is Daryl Morey's stubbornness and his patience going to pay off by bringing in one of the best bucket getters in the NBA, who's still under contract for the next 2 seasons, but then could maybe be with the Sixers for the long haul? So as for what Bradley Beal told Chris Haynes when Haynes asked him, hey, are you going to sign a contract extension with the Washington Wizards? Beal said this, quote, I'm not going to make that grand commitment and it doesn't work. Ultimately, you have to be selfish at some point. Now, Bradley Beal trade rumors have been circulating for a really long time. They were at the heat and the peak last year. He didn't end up getting dealt because he has always shown loyalty to the team that drafted him out of Florida. And this year, the Washington Wizards, actually a game ahead of the Sixers in the Eastern Conference playoff race, are a pretty solid team after they traded away Russell Westbrook and brought in Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and signed Spencer Dinwiddie during NBA free agency. So a lot of people thought, okay, Beal is just really content with staying in the nation's capital. Could this open up an avenue, though, for him to get traded? And if things go downward in a downward trajectory, could Bradley Beal demand a trade? Or when his contract is up, is he going to bolt and test the NBA free agency market? We talk about Beal's contract. It's pretty affordable for what he gives you as one of the best offensive players in the sport. He's on the books this year for a base salary of $33.7 million. The season after that, which is next year, $36.5 million. And then he is going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2023 at the age of 30 years old, when I would imagine, if he's able to stay healthy, still has a lot of good basketball left in the tank. Before we continue to break down these rumors and the potential of him teaming up with Embiid in the city of brotherly love, who would you rather have if you could trade Ben Simmons for one of these players? Is it Bradley Beal? Is it Damian Lillard? Bradley Beal a little bit younger than Dame. Dame also dealing with an injury right now. Just got a cortisone shot for that abdominal injury that he's dealing with right now, which dates back to the Olympics. Type BB if you'd rather have Bradley Beal. Type DL if you'd rather have Damian Lillard. Make sure you get those votes in the comment section down below, and let me know which player you would rather have if Daryl Morey were to trade Ben Simmons for one of those guys. Because of the affordability of Beal, because of the age of Beal, I might go ahead and type my BB. You let me know in the comment section right now. So as we continue to kind of canvass the landscape about these Bradley Beal rumors, I really do think it's pretty fascinating to see if the Sixers would even be able to pull a trade like this off. Now, I think for Daryl Morey, you watch Joel Embiid right now, he is in the peak of his prime. His powers are at an all-time high. Yes, he's dealt with COVID. Yes, he's dealt with some injuries this year, but you take a look at what he did against the Atlanta Hawks. You saw what he did against the Charlotte Hornets. He put the team on his back in the guts of the game and was able to rise up like a true MVP. And I think that Daryl Morey has to make a trade to surround Joel Embiid with legitimate talent. I like the talent on the roster right now, but Embiid needs a co-superstar, and you cannot let his prime go to waste. We'll continue to break this down, but first, let me tell you about today's presenting sponsor, Fanatics, and the wonderful deal that they are offering right now. How about this fresh Sixers hoodie? On sale, 50% off. It was $70. Now it's on sale for $35 at 50% off, only if you use that link down below. It's the holiday season. Why would you go out and shop when you can get this shipped to your door by Christmas and you don't have to go anywhere? Chatsports.com/76ers hoodie. You have to use that link to get 50% off on this fresh Sixers swag. Who is Bradley Beal right now as a player? Let's tackle that next, because his numbers this year down dramatically from last year when he finished second behind Steph Curry for the NBA scoring title. This year, he's only averaging 22.5 points per game on 19.5 field goal attempts. He's only shooting a little less than 44% from the floor. His three-point production has dipped from around 35%, which is right around league average, to 26.5%, which isn't good enough considering the volume and how much the Wizards rely on him offensively to find twine from anywhere on the deck. And the free throw percentage, he's always been a marksman from there. But last year, he was a bona fide MVP candidate and one of the best bucket getters in the sport. He averaged a career-high 31-plus points per game, 23 field goal attempts. So you see he sacrificed a little bit with a better team this year as compared to last year when the Wizards were a lot more top-heavy with Russ leading the charge. His three-point numbers have gone down about 8 percentage points, and his free throw percentage has gone down as well. Here's the crazy thing, though, that I'm monitoring across the NBA right now. Shooting numbers are down all across the league for guys like Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, James Harden. You take a look at their numbers from last year as compared to this year, and they've gone down not just a little bit. They've gone down a lot. Couple of reasons for that. They changed the basketball from Spalding to Wilson. Also, last year, if you remember, we were kind of still at the height of that coronavirus pandemic, so there were a lot of empty arenas with no fans or minimal fans last year, and that led to a lot of inflated shooting numbers. Now, Beal has had to sacrifice because the Wizards are a better team this year. They're just a more well-rounded unit. Spencer Dinwiddie has been really good. Kyle Kuzma has been injected with a newfound form of confidence. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, kind of a 3-and-D guy who's really produced for them. Bertans is a good three-point shooter. There are other pieces on that roster who are good complementary pieces. Montrezl Harrell looks like the sixth man of the year type of player that he was a couple years ago with the Los Angeles Clippers under Doc Rivers. Here's what I do know. I'm not sure why the numbers have gone down for Bradley Beal, to be precise. I do know that Beal and Embiid would be a really, really fun 1-2 punch and a tandem at the Wells Fargo Center and anywhere that they play on the road. They could run a little bit of two-man game with Joel Embiid being that high screener, and because Embiid can knock down some threes, he can pick and pop on some of those screens and knock down the three. If two of the defenders go with Bradley Beal, he could roll to the basket. He could also knock down some mid-range, and Bradley Beal is basically a threat to shoot the ball and score from anywhere on the deck, whether he's trying to get to the rack or he's trying to light you up from downtown with either a step-back three, a pull-up three, or a catch-and-shoot three. Bradley Beal is a phenomenal scorer, and even though his numbers have dipped and gone down from last year, he is a phenomenal bucket getter, and he's really a human highlight reel. And this would cure a lot of the Sixers' late-game struggles, where right now they just don't have that go-to end-of-the-game scorer who they can rely on to create in order for themselves to get their own baskets. Yes, Embiid did it on Friday night against the Atlanta Hawks. Yes, he did it against the Charlotte Hornets the other night when he had P.J. Washington in his pocket and owned him like his own daddy. But I'm not sure if you can rely on a 7-footer to be your consistent go-to threat down the stretch in games at the end of the clock, at the end of shot clocks, because he can get double-teamed and he's just way too big to shake you down off the dribble. Next question for you that I have for you on 76ers Now, and if you haven't already noticed, we're all about the audience interaction here at Chat Sports. And a lot of you are gamers, right? So grade Bradley Beal right now on an NBA 2K scale rating on a scale of 1 to 100. 1 being he's one of the worst players in the league, like maybe a Ben Simmons, or 100, throwing shade, he's one of the best players in the league. Scale him right now on that NBA 2K scale in the comment section. Also, grew up in Westchester, went to Temple University. When I was younger, I wanted cornrows and I wanted to get tattoos. I even asked my mom that. I mean, look at the young bull right here. I've loved this team for my entire life, ever since I can really remember at 4 or 5 years old. Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. I got the blue check mark. Love interacting with all my homies from the Philadelphia area. You want to talk shop, you want to talk ball, you want to talk Eagles, you want to talk life, hit me up. It's the same handle on Twitter or Instagram. Getting back to Daryl Morey. With how good Joel Embiid is playing, he cannot waste his prime years. We saw this with Allen Iverson, right? In the late 90s and the early 2000s, when Allen Iverson was competing for MVP trophies, when he was one of the most influential athletes that we've ever seen in the history of sports, he never had that go-to secondary star option. The Sixers traded for Keith Van Horn when he was washed. They traded for Chris Webber when he could barely move anymore. They thought that Derek Coleman was a good haul when he was clearly a bust. Dikembe Mutombo was cool for a couple of years, but he wasn't an offensive threat. He just waved his finger because he was a great rim protector as a defensive player. Daryl Morey with Joel Embiid can't do the same thing that the Sixers organization did with Allen Iverson when they neglected surrounding him with the necessary pieces to compete for a championship. And because Joel Embiid is somewhat brittle, you don't know how long his prime is going to last. That's why Daryl Morey has to take advantage of Joel Embiid being in his prime right now, because you're not sure how long Embiid is going to be at the peak of his powers like this, where he is a bona fide MVP player and one of the most dominant forces we've seen in the NBA dating back to the days of Shaquille O'Neal. The other night against the Charlotte Hornets, perfect evidence of how good and how elite Joel Embiid can be when he is feeling good, when he's healthy, and he's not having to come back and recover from COVID. What he did the other night against the Hornets was phenomenal, on top of what he did on Friday night against the Atlanta Hawks. He dropped 43 points, 15 of 20 shooting, 12 of 14 at the free throw line because he gets to the line like a James Harden type of player, 15 boards, and when the Sixers needed one of those baskets late in the game to come back after they squandered that lead in regulation and then to really salt the game away in overtime, they relied on Embiid just like they did against the Hawks, and that beautiful pull-up elbow J was able to find Twine. And with that, I do want to talk about this and ask you this. Are the Sixers figuring out late game execution? Last 2 games following that disastrous Celtics loss when it looked like they didn't know what to do late in that game. And it was awful just watching them kind of choke that game away against such a big rival. You figure out the late game execution right now with a guy like Embiid. You bring in another player like a Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum with Tyrese Maxey and the crew, and man, this Sixers team can start climbing the Eastern Conference standings. I talk about those late game struggles and the late game execution. Given what you've seen the last couple of games, are the Sixers figuring out some of those late game struggles? Type Y for yes, type N for no. As always, thanks for watching 76ers Now. Give me a follow, subscribe, appreciate the love, and we'll talk to you next time.